In the song Loyalty by Kendrick Lamar, he utters the phrase, "Tell me who you're loyal to. Does it start with your woman or your man? Do it end with your family and friends? Or are you loyal to yourself in advance? Is it anybody you would lie for? Anybody you would slide for? Anybody you would die for? That's what God's for." Now, those introspective questions can reveal a lot about our true nature. If someone answers that their loyalty lies with their family, perhaps we can conclude that this person is very family oriented. If someone answers themselves, then we can gather that they might be selfish, or that perhaps they now refuse to lend their trust to others as a means to avoid heartbreak. And lastly, if someone answers they would lie, slide, or die for who they're loyal to, that answer would imply that their adoration of that person or thing is so strong that they are willing to go to extreme lengths to protect it. However, I believe that if we truly attempt to understand what or who we're loyal to, that comprehension would not be achieved by mere words, as it would be a difficult task to answer that authentically. I mean, some of us would say family, friends, religion, creed, or nation, but how many of us would be able to maintain that optimism if our loyalty was tested under the right amount of pressure? If we look throughout history, many people have been shown to recant their religion, sell out their family just in fear of persecution. Therefore, what I'm trying to get at is, can we really answer who we're loyal to if our circumstances don't really push us to test if our words match with our actions? I mean, it is easy to say we're loyal, but unless we are put to tests of aptitude, can we really prove it? This rant I just went on is exactly what makes Itachi such a tragic character. If you look at the definition of loyalty, it states devotion and faithfulness to a nation, case, philosophy, group, or person. And often throughout literary history, what is called the classical tragedy stems from dual loyalty, a conflict that arises when a character is faced with a choice that challenges his or her loyalty between two parties, and consequently, that character is forced to selfishly or selflessly choose one party over another. This character dilemma, known as the classical tragedy, is frequently displayed in the many characters in the epics of ancient Greece and Rome, such as the epics of Homer, in addition to being very popular in the English plays of the 16th and 17th century. The classical tragedy can be also found all the way back in biblical stories, such as the tale of Abraham and Isaac. In this tale, God tests Abraham's devotion to him by requesting Abraham to sacrifice his son Isaac. This forces Abraham to make a decision to prove his loyalty to God or his son. Macbeth, Romeo and Juliet, Game of Thrones, Berserk, Attack on Titan, Vinland Saga, Code Geass, and even shows such as One Piece all touch upon the complications of loyalty. But the reason that this theme of loyalty has been so popular throughout the thousands of years of storytelling and through vastly different genres lies in its complexity. And this complexity in loyalty is why Itachi Uchiha stands out much more than any other character in Naruto. It is because his journey as a character is by far the most complex and filled with tribulation. Itachi's story is not black or white. It's not a story of a hero or villain. And this is why Itachi is so fascinating. It's because his character is unorthodox. He doesn't really fit a certain moral criteria, and this moral ambiguity, in company with his loyalty, is what will be discussed in today's video. Ever since Itachi was 4 years old, he was a witness to the true vileness of human nature by participating in the Third Great Shinobi War, something a child, more or less a 4-year-old, should never be a witness to. Hence, with this stripping of innocence at such a young age, Itachi would wish for a more peaceful existence, a burden that would be carried by other characters such as Jiraiya, Hashirama, Nagato, and Naruto. However, much like his predecessors, Itachi's efforts would be futile, as the corrupt nature of the shinobi world superseded his honorable ambition. Furthermore, this ambitious goal of Itachi would also be a main motivator for his relentless work ethic, as he deemed it necessary to become strong to accomplish his vision for peace. Subsequently, due to his hard work, Itachi accomplished great feats as a shinobi, such as graduating from the Ninja Academy at age 7, mastering the Sharingan at age 8, passing the Chunin exams at age 10, joining the Anbu Black Ops at age 11, and becoming an Anbu captain at age 13. Needless to say, Itachi's hard work paid off and resulted in him possessing quite an impressive resume. However, although Itachi was a transcendent shinobi at such a young age, his prodigality started garnering the attention of the Uchiha elites and the Hidden Leaf higher-ups almost simultaneously. And much to Itachi's detriment, these two parties saw Itachi only as a means to further their agendas in their ever-growing war. Therefore, just like previously mentioned, Itachi is in a disposition akin to others who have faced the classical tragedy. Itachi's identity now has dual loyalty. On one side, Itachi is born an Uchiha and is the son of the clan's leader Fugaku Uchiha. And on the other side, Itachi is also a shinobi of Konoha, and to some extent, as a shinobi, owes an amount of servitude to his village. Still, even knowing about the high tensions between these two factions dating back generations, Itachi still strove to find a middle ground for both parties so that they can both coexist in peace. However, much to Itachi's dismay, after the attack of the nine-tailed fox, the Hidden Leaf suspected the Uchiha of conspiring the attack. Thus, Konoha's leaders further isolated the Uchiha clan and relocated their location to an area where they could be more easily surveyed. As a result, this increase in surveillance would result in raising the tensions between these two factions. The Uchiha grew tired of the persecution by Konoha, and due to this wariness, the Uchiha conspired a coup d'etat against the Hidden Leaf. Knowing how disastrous this could be, Itachi went to Hiruzen and the village council to surmise some sort of negotiation for peace. However, both sides refused to settle their feud. As a last effort, Itachi's only ally, Shisui Uchiha, thought of a plan to compel the Uchiha leaders by using his Koto Amatsukami, but Danzo proved to be a foil to Shisui's plan as he took out one of his eyes. Therefore, left with no choice, Shisui offered his remaining eye and hopes for peace to Itachi, then drowns himself. Completely distraught by the horrific fate of his friend, Itachi awakens the Mangekyo Sharingan. However, soon after, to add to Itachi's anguish, some Uchiha suspected Itachi of killing Shisui. This fallacy stirred up by the Uchiha further angered Itachi and made him feel more isolated to his clan. When some Uchiha accusers antagonized Itachi, he angrily took them down. Itachi then decreed his distaste for his clan and warned them that their hubris and inability to cooperate will result in their downfall. Despite this, no one listened to Itachi. As the tensions for war kept on rising, Itachi solicited Konoha's counsel in hopes to find a solution. Hiruzen proposed that a dialogue should take place initially before escalating to violence. The elders opposed this proposal and sought to label the Uchihas as traitors to Konoha for the conspiracy. And lastly, Danzo suggested eradicating the clan by surprise before they could initiate their coup. Following this meeting, in private, Danzo converses with Itachi, telling him that a war between Konoha and the Uchiha was inevitable. Therefore, Danzo presented Itachi with an ultimatum: to side with the Uchiha and undoubtedly lose his life, brother, and clan, or to side with the Leaf and have his clan wiped out, but have the life of his brother saved. Albeit a difficult decision, Itachi chose to side with the Leaf. If we look at Eastern philosophy, more specifically Confucianism, the way it describes loyalty is very similar to how Itachi came to his final decision. In Confucianism, it states duty and loyalty to be synonymous, and moreover, that what determines a person to be dutiful and loyal rests on the discretion of the individual. Only the individual can judge or discern for himself if his actions are loyal or not. However, the individual must also keep in mind that their decisions do reflect their character. And this interpretation of loyalty and dutifulness is exactly why Itachi Uchiha gets praise from the likes of Hashirama. It is because by massacring his clan, he made the biggest sacrifice in sacrificing his morals for the sake of the village. Itachi's reputation was stained by lies, and he was never properly accommodated for his great sacrifice. Therefore, Itachi paid the price of everything for the sanctity of Konoha, and as a result of this laborious trial of character, Itachi's dutifulness makes him a shinobi that should be revered. But for my last point, I believe it is also important to state that Itachi's situation is a byproduct of generations of corrupt and moral crimes of the shinobi world. Additionally, the leaders of the shinobi world were greatly deficient in upholding peace. Greed, envy, pride, and the quest for power caused 3 great shinobi wars, and as a result of petty skirmishes, many innocent children were orphaned, such as Yahiko, Konan, Nagato, and Kabuto. Moreover, we've seen how young children like Gaara and Naruto have been abandoned by society and persecuted for their existence as a result of hatred, fear, and pain being recycled in their societies. And lastly, we've seen a young boy like Sasuke witness atrocities as a result of the incompetence of Konoha's leaders. Even the 4 Hokages admit how their faults as leaders of Konoha led to Itachi's tragedy and much more. Hashirama admits that his will to endure to protect the village was wrongfully implemented, as this will of shinobi encouraged shinobi to envelop themselves in darkness and to commit atrocities for a greater good. This is what led Hashirama to kill his friend Madara, and also would inspire the actions of Danzo, the Anbu Black Ops, and Itachi. Secondly, Tobirama's discriminant policies also played a huge role in the administering of darkness to shinobi, as he'd be the one who found the Anbu Black Ops, enabled Danzo, and put the Uchiha clan in charge of Konoha's police force, which furthered their isolation and persecution. And Tobirama's policy to place the Uchiha clan on the fringes of the village would not aid in their tension as well. Thirdly, Hiruzen also shares his shortcomings as he admits that he failed to uphold his heavy burden. As a result of Hiruzen not being able to withhold the burden of Hokage, he placed Danzo in charge of protecting Konoha from the shadows and letting him do all their dirty work. Hiruzen also gave Itachi the heavy burden to mitigate the issues between the Uchiha clan and Konoha alone. Hiruzen should have known that the duties for Itachi were too much for one person to handle, and as Hokage, he should have been the head of this mitigation instead of Itachi. But due to Hiruzen's negligence, the Uchiha massacre resulted. What further exemplifies this notion of negligence is when Hiruzen arrives at the scene of the massacre, and he is shocked at what Danzo had done. Hiruzen's dismay is just proof of his incompetence. It is his village. Thus, the fact that he was unable to prevent Danzo from enacting the most horrific act in Konoha history up until that point in time just shows that Hiruzen is too passive and complacent in his duties. Lastly, Minato also claims that if he had not died during the Nine Tails attack, he could have put to rest the rumors that the Uchiha were responsible for the attack, as he knew that Max Men was the one behind it all. Also, with Minato being alive, he could have been a mediator to quell the tension between Konoha and the Uchiha. So all in all, Itachi's misfortune stems not from his own faults, but as a result of the cruel world he was born in. And unfortunately, as fate would have it, Itachi would be cursed with the dual identity of being an Uchiha and shinobi of Konoha, which holds Herculean weight. Moreover, Itachi's sensitivities for justice and peace would be another apparatus for his suffering. As Hyojin would say, Itachi was too good of a person, and that enthusiasm for peace would be lamented by the evil of the shinobi world. The darkness and wickedness of organizations such as the Armed Black Ops would not be for the faint of heart. It would morally and mentally challenge Itachi. Kakashi would be another that shared such an ill fate. When good-hearted people have to make decisions to commit bad for the greater good, that momentous choice would drive any fair-minded person senseless. And this decline in morals would be the reason as to why Itachi and Kakashi would be so reclusive. After they cross the line to atrocity, they shroud themselves in darkness and become isolated. Their heart turns so cold that their inclination to be the light that they used to be is now decrepit. This sorrowful path that they now choose is nothing but an atonement for their sins. This endurance of grief, hybridized with his aspiration for peace, will lead to Itachi's tragedy. When Itachi is reanimated, he admits to Sasuke that his quest for peace resulted in an assortment of mistakes. He admits that there were alternatives to reconcile the issues between Konoha and the Uchiha. However, due to his tunnel vision and being under the manipulation of the leaf, he didn't realize his lapse of judgment until it was too late. Itachi realized that the burden to resolve the feud between Konoha and the Uchiha was not to be held alone. Itachi thought that because he gained so much power, was so gifted, and obtained the respect of both the leaf and Uchiha, that he was destined to be the only one to carry such a burden. However, the sense of duty only led to Itachi's isolation and over-exhaustion. In addition, another one of Itachi's faults was his lack of transparency. Itachi affirms this notion by telling Sasuke that he should have told him the truth sooner. If Itachi would have put his trust in Sasuke, maybe he would have been able to convince their mother and father to cease their conspiracy. This mistake coincides with Itachi's ill sense of duty. As a result of Itachi's belief of him being the sole savior, he begets the possible cooperation of allies. As a result of Itachi's both being isolated and non-transparent, he becomes a figure that to others is ambiguous. His intentions become questionable. Therefore, Itachi, through his own volition, becomes dubious. However, Itachi's errors would also be due to Danzo's manipulation. Itachi's philosophy that he adopted from the first Hokage worked on the basis that the stress a shinobi endures is for the benefit of the village. Therefore, the greater the sacrifice made, the more valiant the shinobi. Itachi, in the case of the Uchiha massacre, voluntarily stepped into darkness because he believed this great effort will lead to peace. But he was wrong. Itachi admits his burden was too hard for him to carry. He admits that his hubris was the cause of his suffering, and that perhaps if he was able to trust more and put faith in Sasuke and the rest of the Uchiha clan, perhaps the slaughter could have been avoided and a diplomatic solution could have been surmised. But unfortunately, when Danzo met with Itachi, he told him that the extinction of the Uchiha was inevitable and that Itachi had to choose to die alongside the clan or kill the clan himself and have his little brother saved. And where Itachi went wrong was believing Danzo's words. Danzo manipulated Itachi's loyalty, and with a strong conviction, Itachi fell for his words. In fact, Danzo does not know what could happen. Everything Danzo says is a maybe, something that could happen. There was still time to find alternate solutions. But Danzo made it seem that time was imminent to Itachi, and he had to make a solution in an instant. And with Itachi's narrow-mindedness, in addition to his anxiety to act quickly, it formulated a recipe for making poor decisions. Consequently, without proper counsel or time, Itachi would then go on making the biggest failure of his life. See, what we can learn from Itachi is that when you obsess over that one thing, that becomes all you see. And that is where the fault in loyalty lies, in obsession. Look at Romeo and Juliet. Their obsession for their love resulted in them both dying. In Berserk, we see Griffith's obsession for his dream kingdom to cause catastrophic results. And lastly, in Game of Thrones, we see how loyalty and obsessions for power can have dire consequences. When someone pledges loyalty to something or someone, that loyalty can quickly turn into obsession. And with that obsession, it becomes difficult to discern whether or not your actions serve a productive solution. It can become easier for someone to justify their wrongdoings as being done for the greater good. It can become easy for us to lie to ourselves. Therefore, what Itachi teaches us is that we should not be consumed by our pledges, as this mask known as fiefties are just shields to cover up our mistakes. Instead of looking at someone or something to be loyal to or pledge allegiance to, why don't we pledge allegiance to ourselves? Why don't we accept ourselves for who we truly are and stop identifying ourselves through nations, clans, loves, etc. That's why when Itachi releases the Edo Tensei, he does it as himself, not as shinobi, not as an Uchiha, but as Itachi Uchiha, born from the leaf. He does not do this final action because someone told him to, but because he truly believes that what he is doing is right, regardless of what anybody else thinks. And that is who Itachi pledges his loyalty to at the end, himself and the protection of those he loves.